Yo, what is up guys? I'm bringing you a brand new video, and this time we're discussing whether or not you should be using a Kutum or a Nouver in both PvP and in PvE. And the answer to this question is not as simple as you might imagine. Most people say that, okay, Kutum for PvE, Nouver for PvP, but this can depend, and I'm going to take you through all the different scenarios as to why you might want to run one or the other. So let's start off with the PvE side of things, because everybody in BDO usually is going to PvE at some point or another. And for the most part, the idea that the Kutum is the PvE offhand always comes from the extra monster damage on the item. It has 62 extra monster AP compared to only 5 on a pen Nouver, which is a pretty significant difference. However, the Nouver has significantly more actual sheet AP, which means that it's going to be hitting higher levels of AP brackets. So in BDO, there's brackets. You can see that my bracket is 205, 324 plus 205. If you remove AP like so, then my bracket goes down to as little as 188. You keep on removing AP, it goes down to 154. So by getting AP, your sheet AP, you're also gaining brackets, which means that a Nouver having about 12 to 13 more AP than a Kutum means that you're getting more sheet AP and more brackets, and that can actually make it where a Nouver is better in PvE than a Kutum. So let's go to a chart to really let this hit home and help you guys conceptualize what you should be running in PvE. So I'm going to link this in the description for you guys to play around with. But what I did here is this number here is the cumulative number of AP and monster damage that you get at very specific AP brackets. So in this case, let's say your AP bracket is 289 with a Kutum, which means that your AP bracket with Nouver would be 301, and both of these are Tet weapons. You'll notice that the Kutum is better for PvE. It has 514 cumulative damage, whereas the Nouver has 493. However, in the lower levels of AP, let's say that you have 245 AP, which means that you would then have 257 AP with the Nouver. You can see that Nouver is still worse and Kutum is still better. But now let's move that up to the next bracket, and all of a sudden, you'll notice that the Nouver now starts outperforming the Kutum in PvE. If we go up even further, you can see that now the Nouver outperforms by even more, 11 AP. Now we move it up a little bit more to 257 versus 269, and now it's a difference of 12 AP. So in the range of 261 to 269 with your Nouver, you're actually going to find the Nouver outperforming a Kutum in PvE. And so if you are to want to min-max your PvE damage, you might consider running a Tet Nouver during these brackets. However, once you start going up to 261 Kutum, which is 273 Nouver, you can see that the Kutum now starts to take the lead, and it will continue to hold that lead all the way up to the maximum AP brackets. So in a very specific range between 261 and 273, the Nouver is actually a little bit better. Now, I want to point out something that some PvPers might consider. Let's say that your 289 AP Kutum with a Tet Kutum, and you have a pen Nouver, and your AP bracket is 305. You'll notice that there's just a pretty small difference between the actual amount of damage you're going to be doing with this Nouver compared to your Kutum. So in this case, you might even forego having a Tet Kutum altogether, because the extra amount of damage output that you're really doing is super insignificant. And let's say that you're grinding on Arsha or something, you're probably going to want to have your Nouver equipped instead of your Kutum in case you have to PvP. So I would suggest playing around with this calculator and see what the little damage differentials are between Kutum and Nouver, depending on if you have Tet or Pen and what your AP brackets are. But for the most part, you're going to run a Kutum all the way up until you can get 261 Nouver. Then, once you're able to get 261 Kutum, you then switch back to Kutum for the rest of time for maximum PvE damage. So let's talk about the PvP side of a Kutum versus a Nouver. Nouver has significantly more AP than a Kutum. It's got about 12 or 13, depending if it's Tet or Pen, and it's got very little DP. However, If you look at the DP of a Kutum, you'll notice that the majority of that DP comes from its evasion, or comes from, yeah, the extra bonus evasion that it has. And because it has so much evasion, it makes it a very poor option for DR builds to run in PvP. The reason behind this is that if you're a DR build, people are probably hitting you about 120% of the time, which means that if you put on a Kutum, let's say it goes down to 110% of the time, well, you're still getting a hit 100% of the time, so the extra evasion on the Kutum really doesn't play a factor in getting you more tanky when you are a DR player. And the trade-off of the accuracy that you gain versus the DP that you are gaining as well, it's just not worth it for the AP loss on the Kutum. So basically, if you run an evasion build, a Kutum can be a great option because it's so evasion heavy. It has the extra accuracy. You make back some of that from losing on the Begs versus Liebers. And you also get the Sheet DP stats, which is a really, really good offhand for an evasion build. But if you're running a DR build, you're more than likely, in fact, almost 100% of the time, better off running a Nouver because you get a ton of more AP brackets. You're barely losing any tankiness because even though your Sheet DP is going to be, less, it doesn't really matter because a lot of that DP that you're losing was evasion anyway, and that's not really helping you. So ultimately, that is my final analysis, I guess, of Kutum versus PvE. Kutum versus Nouver in PvE and PvP. Let me summarize here. If you're a DR player, you're going to want to run your Nouver in PvP always. If you are an evasion player, there's a very good chance that the trade-off of losing that AP to gain the extra accuracy and DP is worth it on the Kutum, which means that if you're evasion, you want to run Kutum. Now, if you are a PvE player, for the most part, Kutum is going to be your best in slot offhand. Whereas if you are in a certain AP range, the Nouver might actually be better, but it's really not that much better. So I really think that for the most part, you're going to run your Kutum in PvE no matter what. However, there are certain instances where if you have a pen Nouver and a Tet Kutum, it might be worth running the Nouver so that you don't have the extra expense of a Kutum. That's pretty much it. Hopefully that made a lot of sense. If you guys have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments. If you liked the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace.